Second, let's preview the game. Bama at Georgia. The stories of the season. For Alabama, it's all about redemption. Don't need to get too tricky about it or cute. It's redemption in Tuscaloosa. No team was more embarrassed last season than the Crimson Tide, losing unranked games to Oklahoma, Vandy, Michigan in the bowl game in the first year without Nick Saban. And then, after a whole offseason of hype and building up and saying that won't happen again, they got flat out embarrassed again. Week 1, losing to Florida State as 14-point favorites on the road. The last 3 weeks for Alabama have been super promising. The offense has looked so alive. The passing attack is terrific. The wide receiver room looks to be like the talent we came and expected it to be, where it's one of the best three deep rooms in the country. The defense looks more than ready. That being said, they haven't played anybody yet. This is the first true test since the lowest points of the program just less than a month ago. You're going to be entering a really tough road environment. Can you avoid the same mistakes that have plagued you since Kalen DeBoer took over? Can you have below 8 penalties? Please. Can you get off the field on third down? Can you avoid the late hits or the false starts or just everything that you can control that sets you back? That's what hurt him all last season. That's what hurt him against Florida State. Can you go into a really tough environment and show that you have learned from these mistakes? Can you keep the turnover margin even or maybe even win it? How they choose to balance this offense is so interesting to me. And the key part in how Alabama can emerge from Athens victorious on Saturday. Huge return for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Jam Miller is set to make his season debut this weekend after a broken collarbone in the team's scrimmage this past August halted what was an awesome offseason for Alabama's RB1. He was the lead back. There was no denying he was the best guy in that running back room. He was going to bring balance to this offense, and his absence, they haven't found anything. There still hasn't been a great run game coming from the Alabama Crimson Tide. My question is, he's been out. He's ready to return. At what percentage are you getting Jam Miller? Is this where he's back and he's the feature tailback and you're able to give him the rock 18 to 20 times and all of a sudden you're like, oh, see, there's the offense we thought Alabama was going to have because they have their feature back? Or is Alabama a little worried that Jam's it like 75, 80%? Where like we could try and force the rock to him, but maybe he won't play at his best. Or maybe we risk him getting banged up again. Do they even want to try that? Are they too worried that a couple of quick 3-and-outs will put them in a 10-plus point deficit and all of a sudden they have no choice but abandon the run? Very interested to see how Ryan Grubb calls this. And we'll know early on. If they are toting the rock in between the tackles with Jam Miller early in the first couple of drives, then that shows me they have all the confidence in the world that he's back at 100%. If they're pass happy in the first few drives, I'll be a little bit worried about them being able to sustain a balanced and competitive offense. So that has been the stories to watch for with Alabama this year. For Georgia, look, man, I have them as my number 2 rated team in the country. That being said, they've been trying to get a really inexperienced team up to speed quickly. This is one of the more inexperienced teams that Kirby Smart has ever put on a football field. And because of that, there are a ton of learning curves to get over and certain things that you don't come to expect from Kirby Smart-led defenses. 62nd in pressure rate. They're allowing 5.7 yards per play, which is 78th in the country, and they're allowing 250 passing yards per game, which is 96th in the country. Now, a lot of that comes from the Tennessee game, but it wasn't like they were just lights out the first few weeks either. Now, Georgia's still been really strong against the run, but this Alabama passing game has really found a groove the last few weeks. And I could definitely see the Georgia secondary being stressed out, much like it looked against Tennessee early on in that game as well. So Georgia has been incredibly impressive to me. But I wonder if still early on in the season, I just don't know if they're ready for like that statement win where they win 13-10. If it was week 10, 11 when they're facing Alabama and they're fully up to speed and they've learned the ins and outs of this defense and there's just so much more continuity than you're getting at this point in the year, I could see the just flat out shut the gates, lock the damn gates, and Alabama's held to 13. I'm very curious to see if they're at that point of the season yet, because I don't believe they are, and I believe that Tennessee game is pretty indicative of that. So we've got two matchups to watch in this game. The first one is who wins the battle of the bad up front. And by that I mean the Georgia defensive line and the Alabama offensive line. These two groups have been pretty underwhelming, but in different areas. You know, Georgia's doing fine against the run, as I said. The sack rate is just 1.72%, which is 125th in the country. They are not getting to the quarterback. Alabama, meanwhile, is doing a good job of keeping the quarterback upright, but running at just 123 yards per game, which is 87th in the country. So you're getting strength against weakness and strength against weakness. Which one of those is going to impose their will more? You know, is Alabama just going to be able to keep their quarterback upright for the entire game and he's just chucking the ball around the field like we've seen in the last few weeks? Or is the Georgia defense going to stand out more in their ability to stop the run in Jam Miller's return? That, to me, positionally and talent-wise, is the one thing I'm looking for. And the second battle, and this might be more important, we've already hinted at it, who is going to win the maturity battle? Now, I'll tell you, I give the early and easy edge to Georgia. They're fourth in the country in penalties. Alabama, down in the 90s. It's been an issue for over a year now. What has Alabama learned in the last few weeks? Has the gut check moment actually been the gut check moment? Or will this team still play undisciplined football against teams that will be more than happy to take advantage of that? Wisconsin can't take advantage of you if you're an undisciplined team because you still have such a talent discrepancy against them. Georgia will be a team that can pounce on that. So that's the other battle I'm trying to see. Has Alabama matured over the last few weeks to where they know they can't play undisciplined football if they want to go into Athens and beat the Dogs? The numbers that stick out in this: Georgia riding a 33-game home win streak that dates all the way back to 2019. There has been no team more impressive at home. I think the next longest streak is Washington, sitting somewhere in the 20s. Like, Georgia's run in Athens has been unbelievable under Kirby Smart. And for Alabama, we like to pick on DeBoer for his losses to opponents outside the top 25, but he is still 6-1 against top 10 teams as a head coach. That dates back to Washington, Alabama last year where he picked up the victory over Georgia. He usually does get up for the big games better than he gets up for those lower level ones. And then you also have to talk about the Tide historically, especially recently, have had Georgia's number. Won 9 of the 10 last games against the Bulldogs, including the last 3 as an underdog, of which they are this week. And they're also heading to Athens for the first time since 2015, which is a weird one to kind of wrap your head around, because you're talking about how Alabama has owned Georgia, and it's like, well, how can that be? Because Georgia's been unbelievable at home. They haven't gone there. This is the first trip to Athens since 2015. I got a bonus number for you. We'll pop on the little analytics glasses because we've ditched that the last few weeks because I forgot they were down there. 7 of the last 13 battles between these teams have been upsets. So almost half the time, the underdog has pulled off the upset in this game. Will that happen this weekend? Let's discuss. So Georgia, just 2.5-point favorites. The over-under, just like Penn State, Oregon, set at 52.5. I believe that Georgia wants to make this game ugly. That's how they best have won over the last few years. Like I mentioned, when they go up against Texas last year, and Texas has this high-octane offense. It was a 13-10 game. I believe that was the final. They like to win games ugly. which is a total reverse of how they played that game against Tennessee. They can go and win those shootouts as they showed to us. I don't think Kirby Smart prefers it to be that way. I think he wants to be in a game where he knows he can outsmart the other coach, just a couple of different plays making the difference. If Alabama is getting called for the false starts, the holding penalties, dumb late hits on defense, everything plays right into Kirby Smart's hands, and I think they'll be able to pull out this win. But I also have thought in the offseason, in fall camp, through the first month of the season, that despite the sloppy play or the lack of consistent effort, the talent on this Alabama team is greater than just about every roster in the country. And I think this is the game where they remind everyone of it. I am predicting that the Alabama passing game will look as potent as it ever has these last few weeks and stress out the Georgia secondary even worse than Tennessee had just a couple weeks ago. I believe the depth at the wide receiver position will stress out more than Tennessee just taking their shots down the field. I also believe that the reintegration of Jam Miller at the running back position will further rejuvenate this offense to a point where it's not just trying to hit explosive plays. They'll be able to sustain long, balanced drives and keep the Georgia offense on the sidelines. I also believe that the talent on this Alabama defense will halt most of the Dawg's strong but unproven parts of its personnel. I still think they're a little weak on the offensive line. I still don't trust the running game fully outside of sheer volume. I am predicting that the Bulldogs' 33 home game win streak comes to an end this Saturday, and that the Alabama Crimson Tide will win by a final score of 28-17, and this being the kickstart to Alabama's resurgence in this sport. Give me the Tide by 11 points.